In this video, we'll be looking at the Macintosh LC. Announced October 15th, 1990, but not widely available until early 1991. Discontinued March 23, 1992. It used the Motorola 68020 processor, running at 16 MHz. It had 2 MB of RAM soldered to the motherboard. Before I start, I'd like to thank the folks at work for supporting me when I could not be there because I was making these videos. In gratitude, I took them all to Chi-Chi's and everyone had a great meal on me. Anyway, the original Macintosh was conceived as a low-cost, easy-to-use computer for the general public. One that the user would never have to open up and tinker with. A computer appliance, as they put it. But there were Apple engineers and customers who wanted a more powerful, open Macintosh.
Where are we going to?
With the departure of Steve Jobs, the covert Macintosh 2 project came to light. Unfortunately, the new Macintosh leader, Jean-Louis Gasset, concentrated only on these high-end, high-profit machines, alienating home, education, and small business. Apple engineers realized this long before Apple's top management, and began working on a low-cost version of the Mac 2 way back in 1988. When management finally realized they needed a low-cost Mac, the engineers already had one in the works.
Apple hopes to shake its image as a manufacturer of high-priced computers with the introduction of 3 new Macintosh systems.
Gasset was forced to change strategy, but by the time the LC was released, he had left Apple, replaced by the inept Michael Spindler. Worse, Spindler would later become Apple's CEO.
June 17, I was given 15 minutes to make up my mind whether I wanted this job. 15 minutes.
Here is the Macintosh LC introduction at the October 15th, 1990 Apple event.
And that brings us to a new shape box for a new shape Macintosh, presenting the most radical member of the Macintosh family, the Macintosh LC.
The Macintosh LC.
Well, it's perfect for small business. The Macintosh LC is a business computer.
The Macintosh LC is an education computer.
Oh, Brianna, this
What?
is a powerful machine. It's got 2 MB of memory, expandable to 4 or 10 megs. The 40 meg hard drive is standard, and it's got SuperDrive to ensure built-in file compatibility. Now let's see. Anything I forgot?
Yeah, you forgot to mention that the powerful 32-bit processor was provided with only a 16-bit data path, as indicated by only 2 8-bit RAM slots. Compare that to the Macintosh 2 SI, which had the proper 4 8-bit RAM slots. And you forgot to mention that the memory controller imposed an artificial 10 MB memory ceiling, no matter how much RAM you added beyond that. What a ripoff. Hey, don't worry, Brianna. Apple is a business, and as such, not everything is done in the customer's best interest. For example, over the last few years, Apple's been trying desperately to eliminate OS X Snow Leopard from the installed base. Snow Leopard still has users because it was the last OS X that could still emulate PowerPC code, and the last to be able to run the earliest Intel Macs. In other words, Snow Leopard was slowing the upgrade cycle, costing Apple sales. On this Mac Pro early 2008 running Snow Leopard, my screensaver is now disabled, iPhone will no longer connect to download pictures, and Safari web browser no longer functions on a number of websites. Apple made no bones about it in the October 2013 Apple event, where they announced that version 10.9 Mavericks was free.
Whether you have our latest release Mountain Lion, or even if you never upgraded and you're still running Lion, or if you're a complete laggard and you're still back on Snow Leopard,
Damn!
Regardless, the media and consumers welcomed the appearance of a low-cost color Macintosh, allowing them to overlook the limitations. Anyway, the 1990 LC introduction continued by interviewing 4th, 5th, and 6th grade classes who were given pre-release LCs to work on. The value of this exercise seemed dubious at best.
Aaron, there you are. What a beautiful picture and what a nice poem. Your voice sounded so nice. What did you think about drawing in color and recording your voice?
It was really neat.
The LC was released alongside the Macintosh Classic and Macintosh 2SI. The LC had roughly twice the performance of the Classic and half the performance of the 2SI, putting it squarely in the center of the new low-cost lineup. Here's a chart showing the relative cost of each machine Apple was selling at the time. And with the elimination of the Macintosh Plus and Macintosh SE from the product line, the LC became Apple's second least expensive Macintosh system. And here it is, the Macintosh LC. No, we don't have to do that again.
The Macintosh LC.
I said that already. Hey, what? Ethan, get out of here. Why are you here?
You got a message from work.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
Hey, how come nobody asks me if I like Cheetos or if I like Mexican food? I just gotta go with the program.
Hey, don't have a cow, lady. It was a first-class restaurant.
Tom!
Sorry.
Okay, let's get back on track here. During development, the new Macintosh had the codename LC. No, LC like the name. No, Elsie like the girl's name. E-L-S... There you go. So what did the LC suffix stand for anyway? Well, bluntly enough, it stood for low-cost color. Essentially, a miniaturized version of the Mac II from 1987 using the same processor. A good modern-day parallel is the Mirror Drive Door G4 from 2003 and the Mac Mini G4 from 2005. The suggested retail price of the CPU was $2,499 US. To hit such a low price point, the LC was designed as cheaply as possible while maintaining saleable features. There was no reset or a programmer switch. You had to use special keystrokes instead. There was no power lamp or hard drive activity lamp. And while it included the microphone, the sound processing and therefore sound quality was nowhere near as good as the 2SI. They released the Apple Keyboard 2, which they could manufacture cheaper than the original. Then they included it free in the box as a selling feature, something they had not done since the Macintosh Plus was released. Although I'm using the standard 13-inch color monitor that had been around forever, the new 12-inch low-cost monitor was designed for the LC. It had a resolution of only 512 by 384, the same as the compact Macs, causing some software issues if higher resolution was required by the software. With its low profile, they had to make the internals very compact. Instead of the half-height hard drives they normally use, they opted for the new skinny 1/3 height drives, even though they were quite new to the market. Of course, this style hard drive became a standard and is still being used today, except now they can hold 4 million megabytes. The 80 megabyte hard drive was also an option. The education market segment was very important. To bring down the price to entice education, they gave them the option of getting an LC without a hard drive, just single or dual floppy drives. Hence the knockout on the front bezel. Apple later reported that less than 5% ordered dual floppy LCs, so that idea got dumped on the next model revision. The keyboard power button did not function for the LC. It powered on by a physical switch. It shipped with 2 megabyte of RAM, which was soldered to the board. This was done in preparation for the upcoming System 7, which required that amount. But for now, it would be released with System 6.07. It was originally planned to ship with 6.06, but that system had issues with AppleTalk, and sometimes the keyboard would freeze.
It doesn't do anything?
So it was quickly replaced at the last minute. System 7 was released in May 1991 and was a significant upgrade. This LC running System 7.1 has some good shareware on it. This one, called Desktop Textures Installer, lets you set some more elaborate desktop patterns. Something very familiar about this. It's always fun to go back and look at games for the LC. If you have them on floppy disk, that's great, like Scrabble and Pathway into Darkness. If you need software for the LC, you can always download from websites like Macintosh Garden. The most popular download on this site is Oregon Trail. While it came after my time in school, it was widely used in education, and the game's popularity among 90s students led to a high level of nostalgia among today's adults. As you can see from this t-shirt meme, and scented soap, and spoofs. Okay, enough. Let's take a look at this game. I took a disk image off the internet, and now I'll show you how to make a floppy disk copy for the LC. I recommend running System 7.1, which is a nice stable release. What the?
Did I hear you right? Did I hear you saying that you're gonna make a copy of a game without paying? Come on, guys! I thought you knew better. Don't copy that floppy.
First, since when can the LC process full motion video? And second, who are you anyway?
I'm your MC, double dab, DP, that's the disc protector for you and the posse. That's the artists, writers, designers, and programmers that work up the images for games and grammar that let you learn, but also play the game you came here for today.
Yeah, but DP, at this point the software has no monetary value. It's being preserved for historical purposes. DP. DP! I think we lost it. Okay, so here's that reset keystroke I was talking about. Enough of that guy. If we look inside, the fan and speaker came as a one-piece unit, which connects to the board by contact using those 4 metal pads there. The original LC seems to have been the only one to use it, probably because the connection was pretty flaky. On the LC2 they went back to good old-fashioned wires, yet the vestigial metal pads remained on the motherboard. With a tiny 50-watt power supply, the LC was great on power, even though that wasn't really a priority for Apple back then. In comparison, the Mac 2 power supply is 230 watts.
Whoa!
Get that toy out of my shot. These days for Apple, like most companies, environmental responsibility is an important aspect of doing business.
As you know, we work really hard to make all of our products environmentally friendly, and these are both as well. Energy Star 6, EP Gold, arsenic-free display, mercury-free display, BFR-free, PVC-free, and highly recyclable with all that beautiful aluminum and glass.
Well, I don't really think it was fair because when we have kids eventually and our grandchildren, they have to live in a polluted world. When we messed it up and there's nothing they can do now, it's too late.
Anyway, the power supply on the LC is the most likely component to fail. Well, maybe the hard drive, but fortunately just replacing the capacitors in the power supply will usually fix them. And hopefully you don't have to replace this one. All motherboard chips were surface mounted except for the ROM, just in case Apple needed to change the ROM or do a ROM upgrade, which they never did. The ROM was quite large at 512K, as big as the 2CI and 2FX. The LC's 68020 processor had only been used previously for the original 1987 Macintosh 2 and lacked the ability to take advantage of virtual memory introduced in System 7. The Macintosh LC came with 256K of video RAM on a card called the 4.8 Display VRAM SIM. But if you wanted to use a monitor bigger than the 12-inch, it was recommended to upgrade to the optional 512K VRAM SIM for $249. This was a better design than what the 2SI did. The 2SI had no video RAM at all. It used system RAM to display video, which slowed the whole computer down. While the Mac 2 had 6 NUBUS slots, the LC just had 1 processor direct slot, which became known as the LC PDS, holding only small cards specific to the LC and providing just a small port in the rear of the machine. The LC PDS slot could be used to add Ethernet or math coprocessor cards, but the main reason for being was for the Apple IIe card. This card strategically acted as a bridge for schools with a big investment in Apple II software and made it easier for them to remain in the Apple camp.
It starts right up.
You mean it's that simple? I don't need a bunch of fancy thingamajigs or whatchamacallits?
That's right.
The Apple II eCard found its origins in the Apple II GS personal computer. With the 16-bit Apple II GS, Apple had built an Apple II emulator so it would be backward compatible with the 8-bit Apple IIs that came before. The emulation chip was called the Mega 2. An updated version of this chip was used on the II eCard, which they called
Gemini.
It was pretty much an Apple IIe on a chip, minus RAM, ROM, and CPU. It didn't emulate the Apple II CPU. It contained an actual CPU. The 65C02 was mounted on the board and could run at either the native 1 MHz of the Apple IIe or accelerated to 1.9 MHz. It has 256K of memory split between system RAM and emulating the IIe ROM. You could not be running the Mac and Apple II at the same time because they shared resources like the mouse and the keyboard, etc. The 12-inch monitor's odd resolution was probably designed to accommodate the IIe card. When activated, the IIe card would slightly widen the resolution from that 512 by 384 to 560 by 384, which then is a simple 2x upscale from the native Apple II resolution of 280 by 192. Going back to the Apple Keyboard 2, there were two versions made by two different manufacturers, so internals will be different and cannot be swapped. You can tell the difference by looking at the serial number. The serial will start with either an M or an S. It's a little more tricky to take apart than the old Apple keyboard. Once the screws are removed, you can't just lift the cover off. There are small latches near the ADB port. So you have to press the bottom part on each side to unsnap them. Once those are released, the top cover can be lifted away. Previous Apple keyboards had no fire retardant additives in the keycaps, so while the keyboard bezel yellowed, the keycaps did not. With the Keyboard 2, the BFRs, which are brominated fire retardants, were added to the keycaps as well, so the whole thing turns yellow. This complicates retrobrite treatment, but I'll show you how I did this one in a future video. Introduced at the same time was the Apple Extended Keyboard 2, if you needed function keys. The LC is able to run up to System 7.55. Operating systems beyond that would not run because of the 68020 processor. In 1992, it was replaced by the LC2. The LC2 was kind of a dud, retaining the same limitations of the LC. They upped the RAM to 4 MB and replaced the 020 processor with an 030 processor, even though there was no speed advantage to the 030. But you could use virtual memory and run System 7.6. Nonetheless, they eventually got it right with the LC3, then the LC475. Quite a jump in version numbers. Plus, there were many more LCs with different case designs. By that time, LC systems were sold exclusively to educational institutions.
So it is an education machine.
Selling 500,000 units in the first year, the LC was a very successful system, which was critical to Apple's survival in the early 90s. Thanks for watching, and I'll have the next video up real soon. Hey! Oh, before I go, I never got back to Oregon Trail. I actually tried this, and it still holds up. It's a game that brings a lot of early childhood education concepts to a US history themed game. I can see why it was so popular. Okay, so the setup you see here is pretty much what a 90s student would have worked with playing Oregon Trail. Oh, hey DP. I hope there's no hard feelings.
See ya, I'm out of here.
Oh, I guess I got through to him. Anyway, as we finish... Crap, the power supply just blew. And now the power's out? Come on.
Hey, the power's out.
Yeah, I know. Don't open the fridge or flush the toilet. Wow, it's really widespread.
Welcome to the end of the computer age.
My God. DP, no!